Welcome back, everyone. Jason here with Focus Creative Studio. Today we're at episode 1, part 2, where we'll go through and show how to create HO scale brick for 3D resin printing. In this tutorial, we'll create a simple brick wall, and then I'll also go through and show how to create the pipe connectors to fit those walls. Alright guys, here we go. A few housekeeping things before we get started. I'm in SketchUp Pro 2020, and I do have a couple of add-ons that I will be using today. The first one is Draw a Taper, and the second one is Frito Corner the Bevel tool. These I'll post in the description below so that you can add those into your SketchUp workflow if you don't already have them. Now the next thing we'll want to make sure that we take care of is just making sure our units are accurate. So we'll go to Window, Model Info, and we want to make sure we're clicked on the Units tab. We want to be in the decimal format, not architectural or engineering, and set to millimeters. Precision should be set to 3 places. You don't need to go beyond that. And this allows us to model in metric at HO scale, which is our goal for today. So the first thing we're going to do, L for the line tool, we're going to draw a vertical line on the blue axis, 0.6 millimeters tall. Hit the space bar to get out of that command, and then window, crossing window, top right to bottom left to grab, select your item. Then we're going to come to the taper tool. We're going to select rectangle for today. And the size of our brick at the base is 0.6 millimeters by 2.4 millimeters. The top of the brick is 0.5 millimeters by 2.3 millimeters. Keep your selection on the path position at center and no bevel angle. So you'll get this. Green on the bottom, red on the top, yes. The faces are oriented correctly, hit yes, and there you go. You have a simple brick taper. Now, what we want to do is this is a group. So we're going to double left click to get inside the group. Now we're working on the model. If I come up and select, just double click, don't select any of the faces, then I'm going to collect the Frito Corner tool, have my offset bevel parameter set to 0.1 millimeters, and I'm going to click the middle of that face. Hit enter. Double click, left click to get out of the group. Now you have your individual brick created. Now before we go any further, what we want to do is we want to create a copy of this. So to do that, you don't have to copy, just hit the move tool, hit the control key, and you see a little plus. Grab a corner. We're going to move it 2 millimeters out of the way, and it creates a copy for you. Then you can double click this. We want to create a half brick. So I'm just going to grab the midpoint, vertical line. Basically I'm creating a closed plane. And now I'm going to left click and select all of this. Come up to Edit, Intersect Faces with Selection. And now I've cut that brick in half, and I can select these just by crossing the window and delete. The other method I can use is type E for erase, and everything that I cross over in the face that it sees, it will erase. It won't erase things behind that it doesn't see in your current view. Space bar to get out of it, and now you've got a half brick and a full brick. Now here's where the beauty of SketchUp, in my opinion, really starts to pay dividends when you learn it as your modeling software. I can select this, and again, I don't need to copy. I'm going to hit M for move, Control, which will allow me to do multiples. I'm going to select this one corner. Doesn't matter really where you pick. I just like to keep it on the geometry. Left click. Now remember, my brick is 2.4 millimeters long. So we want to add our 0.3 millimeter space between, which is what I use. So we're going to go 2.7, and I'm typing these in as part of the command sequence, and these numbers show up in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. Enter. Now don't type anything else, but you can hit the times button on the numeric pad, 10, and it creates 10 bricks for you. Space bar to get out of that sequence of commands, and now I've got 10 bricks. Simple. Now before we get any further, I'm going to come to this side, and I'm just going to draw a reference line, a couple reference lines real quick. Using the line tool, keeping everything perpendicular. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these, control to add that one. Again, M, using the move tool, I'm just going to hit control, we're going to make a copy, and we're going to copy it this direction, and I'm 0.6 wide, and that distance shows up in the bottom left hand corner of your modeling screen in SketchUp. But I want 0.2 millimeters between vertically, so I'm going to go 0.8, hit enter. Now I still have all of this selected, so now I can move them. That's why I drew these reference lines earlier. I'm going to grab the midpoint in that, slide the whole group on the x-axis, and we're aligning that edge with the center of that, or the center of the group with the edge of that line. Enter. Now I've got that whole row, and I'm just deleting here, centered on that brick. We don't need this one at the end because we're going to show you how to work with the half brick. So I'm going to select it, left click, move. I'm just grabbing the geometry here, and I know I'm 0.3 away. So 0.3, enter. Oh, sorry, 0.2. 0.2 vertically. Now, one of the things that it doesn't work, actually what I want to do is we just want to go ahead and align these now, because we're going to move this 0.3 this way. So just keep that, you got to keep the green axis highlighted to make sure you're going in the right direction. So 0.3, and then what you'll see is that we're past. So what we're going to do is we're going to double left click to get into our group, use the push pull command, which is P, and then if you hover over that face, it won't do these because they're tapered and they're part of that bevel. That's one of the hurdles you run into when you use that bevel tool, is you can't select it with some of the other common tools, but that's okay, we don't need it here. So push pull this face, and then if you align it with the edge, it'll automatically snap to it, and hit enter. Space bar to cancel out, double click left to get out of your group. Now I've got that, but I still need one on this side. So we're going to hit this, M for move, control key to copy that move, and we're just going to grab it based on the geometry, those endpoints, move it there. So now I've created a copy this time. We're going to right click, and we're going to use flip along groups green, and you'll see it flip to the direction that was facing. And we're still in the move command, so we're going to grab that corner along the green axis, and we're going to hold the shift key down so it locks it to that axis, and then I'm going to come over here, select that, and then let go of the shift key, and everything's in place. Double or space bar to get out of the move command, double click to get out of the group, and now I've got my first two rows of brick. Now it's really simple at this point. You're just going to drag and select everything. You've got all those groups. M for move, control, because we're going to do multiple. We've got that plus key. Now this time, corner to corner is 1.4 millimeters. And again, that's in the bottom left-hand corner. So we're going to add 0.2 to that, 1.6, enter, and then we'll go times 10. Space bar to get out. I have basically created all the bricks I want, just to show how this pattern setup can be super simple. Now let's put a base on it. R for rectangle. I'm using the middle mouse button to spin and rotate. There. Now I've got a rectangle with the face the wrong direction, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to double click. You know what, I've seen something that my geometry isn't quite right, so let's fix it right here in the video, and I'll show you, because this will happen. So this, when I drew the rectangle, it really points out that this wasn't perfectly aligned. So what I want to do is it's just going to be these end pieces, because the rest of my bricks were fine. It's when I made that move. This side is perfectly fine. The other side is wrong. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out of that. We're going to select. Actually, let's go ahead and delete this. So I double left click that to select the face and the perimeter. So we delete that. So we want to go ahead, zoom out so you can see all of them. Hold down Control, and then left click each one of these end half bricks. It's good this popped up because this happens. It just means that I wasn't really paying super close attention to my geometry. M for move. And then I get in the green direction, I hold that shift count, and then I'm going to shift key down. I'm carefully going to select that outside corner. See, there's something in there that it was grabbing. I'm not sure what it was, but so we want to get to the outside corner where I got it green. Boom. Now they're, oops. Try that again. Shift. Boy, it doesn't want to grab that. There it goes. Now, space bar to get out, double click to get out of the group. Now everything is aligned. So when we draw that rectangle again this time, you're going to see how everything lined up. And that's going to happen. SketchUp will grab geometry that you're not necessarily paying attention to. So you just have to be really careful when working with SketchUp. It's just kind of the hurdles. Double left click, edit, make group. Now that makes that a separate group from the brick, which is what we want. Now we want to double left click to get into that group. We're going to right click on the face and hit reverse faces. Now that's the face you always want, is the white face. Then we're going to middle mouse button, rotate to the bottom, and we're going to use our push pull command. We're going to P. That face is already selected. We're going to left click, pull, and type 1 for 1 millimeter. Zooming out with the scroll bar. Space bar gets me out of the command. Double click to get out of that whole sequence of the groups. And there you go. There is the brick wall that is posted in the banner image for our tutorial. So real quick, real simple. You don't need to explode the groups. I will say what I found is a follow-up when we mirror these objects. Anytime you mirror an object, while the faces and everything are normal within SketchUp, when you export the file to an STL file, the copy that you mirrored or flipped and rotated will invert its faces, even though it doesn't show up here in the model. And you will need to flip those either in like Mesh Mixer. You can correct your model. I use 3D Print, 3D Builder. So when you import the STL, it will recognize those reversed faces, and you can fix the model and get all those flipped. It's just a nuance that happens within SketchUp. I don't believe this is something that happens in Fusion 360. I don't think it's even an issue, and I've not seen it be an issue with anything in Blender yet. So this may just be a SketchUp thing. Super small hurdle for me because I've been using SketchUp for years. It doesn't bother me that it does that, and it's a quick fix. So that's the brick part. Let's move on and do the pipe connector next. All right, so now with the pipe connector. We'll do it right here on this wall. We're going to take a couple of these. We want to delete some stuff so that we have room here. That gives me, let's a couple more here. And you can adjust this. I'm just making sure I've got plenty of room here. And you'll notice I've got half bricks, so we can bring our half bricks back into play. But real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line. Remember, everything else is in groups. So quick line, I'm going to select it. I'm going to come up here, edit, and make that its own group. Now I'm not going to mess with the geometry of everything else when we do this. It's important to keep everything in groups. And I'll talk about components in a different tutorial so that you learn how that piece works when you've got a bunch of columns, or in this case a bunch of bricks. You want to change the size of everything holistically. If they're a component, it'll change everything with only having to change actually one of the groups. So double click to get into that. We don't actually need that, but before we do anything else and get rid of that line, we're just going to draw some quick geometry that's going to allow us to draw a rectangle in here to fill this gap. I'm going to show you a couple commands. Now I'm going to use the erase command, just the eraser, drag over it, and then I'm going to type R for rectangle, grab that corner to that corner, and again those faces get flipped, so we're just going to flip the faces, reverse faces, and then white on white. Now you've got two faces that are stacked on top of each other, but again, when you run it through 3D Builder or Mesh Mixer, it will automatically correct this. But I want to offset this. I don't want this to be right on my brick in this particular case. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to actually use the offset tool. I'm going to grab, it's already snapping to that outside, so left click and hold that left mouse button down, and remember our grout joint was 0.2 millimeters. So we'll just type 0.2 to offset, and you'll see that we've got a nice offset inside border. Now I can work with this. I'm going to go ahead and extrude this before we do anything. So push-pull command, and I'm grabbing on the face, and I'm just going to go to an adjacent face. If you hover over, go up slowly and hover, and so it's going to align it with this face that I've selected. That makes it basically parallel with the face of the bricks, which is good for what I want to show for right now. So you'll see, oh, that's all lined up. But I want to pronounce that a little bit so that when it prints in 3D, it looks like it's a plate that's at the face of the brick. So we'll come up another 0.2. And that's just enough to bring it to the face. Now, let's create that pipe connection. So we're going to find the center of this. We're still in the group. And there, draw a line middle to middle, and now I can, when I grab this with the circle command, I'll be able to get to the center. Get out of it, sorry. Double click to get back into your group. So C for circle. Now again, I try and always keep this on the geometry. You'll notice it's starting to create segments, and at this scale, you're not really going to see that when it 3D prints. If you're doing larger pieces, you'll need to increase the segments, but SketchUp will only allow you to do so many segments per piece. Excuse me. So we're just going to come out here and we're going to say we're going to do a circle at, let's do 1.5, just a simple geometry. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase that geometry so that it's not in my way. We're going to push-pull this, and we're just going to come up, say, 0.6 more. So just enough to create that edge. And I'm going to use that offset command again. Offset, grab that top ring, and I'm going to come in. So my bolts are probably going to be 0.4 diameter. So if I come in 0.4, then I can create a ring of bolts around here. So now what I'm going to do, remember that taper tool? I'll show you what we can do with it. We're going to grab a line from that point straight up. So make sure it's on the blue axis. I want my bolts to be 0.4 millimeters tall. So I type in 0.4, space bar to get out of it. Now I'm going to select it. And I'm going to come over to the taper tool, and hexagon is what I want. Set the bottom to 0.4 and the top to 0.4, and you're going to get a bolt. Now, this is a group. Remember, when it does that, it creates the group. So, one of the things that's really, really cool, you can use the rotate command and copy at the same time, kind of like we were doing the move command. So, I'm going to need to find the center of this again. Oops, got out of that. Center this again. So now I must select it. I'm going to hit rotate. Control gives me my little plus button. Center of the circle. I'm just going to grab the geometry. Doesn't matter where you grab. Again, just try and stay on the geometry. Rotate. How many bolts do you want? Well, we've got 360 degrees to work with. So why don't we rotate it? It's asking us for the angle, 60 degrees, 60, enter. Now how many do we want? We want 6 total, so times 5. Fills out the circle, escape, space bar, and then I'll hit the erase button to erase that line. Erase this line. Now I've got bolts. Now what we can do if we want, it's not going to let me find that circle, I should have left that line. We can create another circle here. I don't know what tube diameter size you want to use, but we don't want to do anything less than really 0.5 is pushing it. But I mean, you'll want to do this based on the size of tubing you're using to connect. So this can vary. You just need to measure the inside diameter of your tubing, and remember that extending this little protrusion off the face of this is only going to work so far before it becomes unprintable or it snaps off when you try and glue to it. So for this example, we're just going to go 0.5. And okay. It's 0.5 is the default. It won't do anything smaller than a 1 millimeter radius. So you're going to get that pop-up box. Now I'm going to hit E to erase these. P to push pull. I'm going to grab that center, and let's just make this 2 millimeters for the tutorial. Now you have a pipe connector with bolts that will print at HO scale. You've seen some of the examples of my prints that you can then slide tubing on top of and glue in place and have a nice bolted wall connection in your brick. Now, if you want, you don't want this, you can come in, double click. You can change the size of this by push pull. I don't want to do that. I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to show you what we can do with our brick. So we've got half bricks. Let's use them. So we're going to take one, control. We're going to copy. Actually, we're going to move. Hit control. Now watch where I grab. So I'm going to grab right down here, that corner. So then, remember, it's copying it to there. So now those are copied in place. Space bar to get out, left click to get out of the group. Now I got to come over and I got to do the same thing over here. So grab two with hitting control button in between. M for move, control, because we don't want to delete, just move these. We want to copy them without moving them. Select that corner and drop these down here. There. So now you have just created a nice through wall bolt connection for any type of piping that you might want to use. Alright guys, that's it for this tutorial. I hope the information was helpful. Now you feel comfortable with modeling your own masonry walls. If you enjoyed the content, hit that like button and subscribe. This way I know you're interested in seeing more tutorial content for resin, 3D printing, and HO scale. Until next time, go build something.